Hello, welcome to Cast of Wonders, the fantasy sci-fi audio magazine for young adults. I'm Graham Dunlop. Today we present A Suitable Pet by Abigail Hilton. Abigail is a nurse anaesthetist and writer who lives in Florida. Her works are mainly set in the world of Panamindora, and they're available as free audio downloads or as ebooks from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and so on. You can listen to her trilogy for free, The Prophet of Panamindora, at www.panamindora.com. That's Panamindorah, Panamindora. The story is narrated for you by Summer Brooks. Summer is a co-host of Slice of Sci-Fi and its executive producer. Slice of Sci-Fi is an award-winning podcast and website that brings you news and reviews from the world of science fiction, fantasy and horror. Over the years, they've interviewed such luminaries as Walter Koenig, Will Wheaton, Samuel L. Jackson, Bruce Campbell, Peter S. Beagle, Jim Butcher and many more. Go to www.sliceofsci-fi.com to see their work. And now, we've a tale to tell.
The dragon was about 3 inches long and as big around as a human finger. Its skin glistened a pale green blue, and it blinked with wet black eyes, framed in long lashes. It opened its mouth often to hiss, showing tiny white teeth. The dragon's wings were as delicate as a moth's and nearly transparent. Its ribs jutted like toothpicks beneath its skin. Prince Theobald examined the dragon in its birdcage as his little sister, the Princess Rosmerta, danced around her very pink bedroom. "Isn't it fabulous? The man at the market said it bites, but I thought you could tie its mouth shut. Lady Daisylee and Lady Primwrinkle are coming over this evening to play." Lady Daisylee and Lady Primwrinkle were Princess Rosmerta's particular friends, ages 10 and 11. Their favorite plaything was an elaborate miniature village that had been commissioned by the king for his daughter when she turned 7. The best toy maker in the kingdom had constructed the village. It had houses with cutaway views so that the girls could move their dolls inside. The fountains around the houses splashed real water, and the trees had leaves made of the finest silk, with tiny jewels for fruits. As Rosmerta grew older, she requested new details. A forest was installed beyond the village, complete with tiny animals and birds. There was a bridge, and a troll under the bridge. There were naiads in the river. Lately, Rosmerta and her ladies had been requesting knights and princesses. The princesses wore flowing gowns and had real human hair. The knights rode horses of finely carved wood with real leather and silk trappings. They brandished tiny swords. Best of all, the knights had faces painted to resemble various young men of the court, as requested by the giggling girls. Of course, the knights needed something upon which to use their swords, so the miniature country received a dragon. He was made of bronze, with jeweled eyes, and he sat in a little cave on the side of a hill. The live dragon Rosmerta had just purchased was about the same size as the bronze dragon. Theobald considered the creature's predicament. "Are you planning to feed it?" he asked. Rosmerta looked impatient. "Yes, of course I'm planning to feed it. I only wanted you to tie its mouth shut while we play." Theobald returned the birdcage to his sister's bedside table. "What will you feed it?" She yawned. "I don't know. Scraps from the kitchen. It's not very big." "I've read that dragons only eat live things." Rosmerta clearly did not want to be troubled with technicalities. "Then I'll buy mice for it or bait from the bait shop." "Maybe it can eat crickets." "I don't know, Theo. You're the one who wants to be a veterinarian. You tell me. What shall I feed my new pet?" "Mice might work." Theobald reached into his pocket. Dragons get nervous and grouchy if they don't have a nest. They only nest in gold. He pushed 2 gold coins between the bars of the birdcage. The tiny dragon fluttered up with a hiss. It stood rigid like a cat, its ribs rising and falling, glaring suspiciously from Theo to the coins and back. Theobald frowned. It's not a very happy dragon. Rosmerta was examining her knights. Theo, it's a lizard. They don't get happy or sad. If it dies, I'll have the taxidermist stuff it. It'll still be better than the dragon we've got. Theobald winced. It's just a hatchling, Rosie. It can't be more than a few weeks old. So? Theo, I'm not going to hurt it. But if it won't eat or something, that's not my fault. She fluttered her eyelashes. Please be a big, strong knight and tie some string around its snout so we can play with it. Theobald reluctantly complied. The little dragon was no more difficult to corner and catch than a lizard, although it was stronger. It squirmed in his hands as he tied its snout shut. Then he tied a string around its neck as a leash. You know, Rosie, it will get bigger. Not if I keep it in a little cage. The man at the market said dragons won't outgrow the cage they're kept in. Theobald acknowledged that this might be true. Rosmerta's eyes lit with mischief. Lady Daisley says that the rat catcher told her that the sewers are full of dragons as big as horses. People buy them and don't want them and dump them down the privy. But I won't do that. I'll make sure it's dead if I throw it away. See, I'm a responsible pet owner. Theobald sighed. Rosmerta ran a comb through the hair of one of her little doll princesses. Lady Primwinkle says that when dragons mate, the female bites the head off the male and eats him, just like a spider. That's true, said Theobald. The females are the ones who grow big and live for a long time. They're the ones you hear about in stories. They can't mature their eggs without eating another dragon. Their mate is convenient. Rosmerta giggled. I'm glad people don't do that. Theobald smiled. I bet I'm gladder than you are. That evening, while Rosmerta played with her friends and her new pet, Theobald sat with Lady Wilhelmina. She was his betrothed, a princess from a neighboring kingdom. His father had selected her that fall, and they were to be wed in spring. Theobald thought her beautiful, but whenever he tried to talk to her of horses or dogs or manticores or phoenixes, she grew fidgety and bored and began interrupting with talk of drapes and upholstery and fine china. Wilhelmina hated cats, and she was allergic to unicorns. She considered fairies unhygienic, always covered in flower pollen. Centaurs made her very uneasy, and she thought mermaids obscene. Theobald had overheard Wilhelmina whispering to her mother that when she was lady of the castle, all of these absurd animals will be sold, and Theobald's spare time turned to more sensible hobbies like swordsmanship or archery. He was supposed to be a knight. It's a good thing, thought Theobald as he climbed the stairs to his bedroom, that humans do not eat their mates. Theobald paused outside his sister's bedroom. He turned the knob and tiptoed in. The light from the door fell across the little birdcage. The girls had apparently been too afraid or too thoughtless to untie the dragon's jaws. It had curled up on Theobald's gold coins. Even in its sleep, the little dragon gripped a coin with its forepaw, as though this tiny hoard were its only solace in the world. Theobald decided he'd better untie its mouth. He opened the cage door. The dragon stirred. It looked up at him and gave a muffled whimper. It didn't even try to run away. Theo took it out and untied the string. The dragon crouched in his hand and trembled. He thought it must have had a worse evening than he had. You're not just a lizard, he told it softly. I won't let Rosie stuff you. Theobald started to return the dragon to its nest of coins. Then he stopped. He looked out the window at the full moon. He thought of a horse in the stable yard that could be saddled at a moment's notice. He thought of bread and cheese and dried meat in the larder that would make good food on a journey. He thought, a dragon never outgrows its cage. Maybe a man doesn't either. Prince Theobald put the dragon in his pocket and walked out of the princess's bedroom. Surely, There's a veterinarian somewhere who needs an apprentice. His sister, he reflected, would make a good queen when she grew older. In the meantime, she would find a more suitable pet. A unicorn, a flower fairy, a mermaid.
No creature likes to be caged, no animal, no person. At their best, zoos are places of learning, enjoyment, and wonder. What chance would you have to see panda bears, boa constrictors, tapirs, or a platypus were it not for zoos? But at their worst, they're places of misery, degradation, and fear where animals merely exist rather than live. Animals deserve to be treated well. Caging them is a bad idea. But sometimes people find themselves in cages too. Cages of expectations, worries, fears, and uncertainty. You deserve to be treated well. Don't let others' expectations or fears cage you. If you enjoyed today's story and would like to hear more of Abigail's work, take a look at her first Penamindora trilogy, The Prophet of Penamindora, at www.penamindora.com. The links will be in the show notes. Cast of Wonders is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license, so you can share this story with as many people as you like, but you aren't allowed to change or sell it. Join us next time for The Unicorn Tree by Alethea Contis.